Hello, good to see you again. Welcome to Block 1, Solving Problems with Addition and Subtraction. Lesson 6. I'll share my screen. So, in your previous lesson, you learned how to use formal method, or otherwise called column method, for the subtraction of integers. In today's lesson, you're going to learn how to use formal method for the subtraction of decimals. I would like to encourage you to support our mission by sharing the videos to children you think will benefit, or even adults who were bad at maths and really want to work on their math skills. Subscribe to the channel and like the videos. Okay? Thank you. Before we start, I would like you to pause the video and answer the retrieval practice questions in 4 minutes. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've answered the questions, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. For the first one, you were asked to work out the values of these expressions when you were given these values, the value for these variables, the values for the variables. So when x is 8, y is 5, and z is 4. So 3y will have to be in algebra. So if you don't understand what this means, you can go and watch our lessons, which we had done in term 1. So this means 3 times whatever y is. In this case, y is 5, so your answer should be 15. Here, you substitute the values. X is 8. So when we substitute the values, it's going to translate into 8, subtract 5, add 4. All right? So now, your answer, 8 subtract 5 is 3. 3 add 4 is 7. So your answer will be 7. Next, you ask how many centimeters are in 1 meter. Of course, there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. And then here, using this information, you can now convert these. So this is as simply as multiplying them by 100. So that will be 150 centimeter, 105 centimeter, and 155 centimeter. Let's do some new learning. If I ask you to work this out, do you think this is the correct way of representing the problem using your formal or column method? Have a think. Of course not. I'm sure you learned from when we did addition of decimals that we have to make sure the place values are aligned properly. So the tenths should be aligned with the tenths. The ones should be aligned with the ones. So if we actually do that, this is what it should look like. Another way of doing it is to make sure that the decimal points line up. Okay. Now, we can start our subtraction. Again, we'll use the same idea that we used when we did integer subtraction. You have to think about doing exchange if you find out that the number you want to subtract from the other number is not going to be sufficient. You wouldn't be able to do it. So in this case, we won't be able to subtract 5 tenths from 3 tenths. So we're going to do an exchange from the 6 ones. So we take 1 from there. That 1 that we took from the 6 ones, which now makes it 5, is actually equal to 10 tenths. So we now have 13 tenths, which we can use to subtract 5 tenths from, and that gives us 8. All right. Now we want to subtract 7 ones from 5 ones. That won't be possible. So we need to make an exchange from the tens column. So if we do an exchange of 110 from the tens column, that will be equal to 10 ones. So we now have 15 ones. All right. So 15 ones minus 7 will give us 8. Now remember, we did an exchange of 110 from here. So we're now left with 7 tenths. So our answer is 78.8. Okay, there's nothing to subtract there, so that should be 7. Okay, what about this one? We use the same approach. So we want to subtract 8 from 7. So when we start from there, the hundredths, so it's not enough. So we're going to have to say, well, can we do an exchange from the tenths? Of course not. There's nothing there. So we have to look at the ones to see what exchange we can make. So if we use an exchange of 1, that will be left with 3, obviously. That 1 is equivalent to 10 tenths. But remember, we still have to, complete this here so that we can do our subtraction. So if we take 1 tenth, that will be equal to 10 hundredths. So 10 hundredths plus the 7 hundredths will give us 17 hundredths. Now, when you subtract 8 hundredths from 17 hundredths, of course, that is left with 9, you should know, will give us 2.79. So that will be 9. 9 minus 2 is 7, and then 3 minus 1 is 2. Now, remember the place value. I'm just saying that so that we can move on quickly. Pause the video and answer question 1 and 2 in 3 minutes. All right, assuming you've paused the video and you've answered questions 1 and 2, here are the answers. So mark your work and celebrate your success. So here you're asked to complete the calculations. So by now, you should know what we do when we have to do exchange to make sure we have the correct values that we need to do our subtraction. And then here you ask, which column subtractions could you use to work this out? Remember, an easy way to do it is to make sure the decimal points line up. So this would work, even though there is no decimal point lining up. Sorry, there is no decimal point here, but you can see that the place values are aligned. So here you have 8 ones, you have 2 ones. All right. Pause the video and answer question 3 in 2 minutes. All right, assuming you've paused the video, here are the answers. So here you ask, what mistake has he made? So he has found the difference between the numbers in each column. That's all he's done, okay? He's just found the difference. So he's not taking time to think about using his place value knowledge. All right, now use the grid to find the correct answer. This is what he should have done. All right, so that one is 4 subtract 1. So 4 hundredths subtract 1 hundredths will be 3 hundredths. And then here we cannot subtract 7 tenths from 5 tenths. So we have to do an exchange from here. So that will be left with 2. But now we'll have 15 tenths, of which if we subtract 7 tenths from it, we'll have 8 tenths. And then 2 subtract 2 ones minus 2 ones will be 0. So our answer is 0.83. All right, pause the video and answer question 4 in 3 minutes. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've answered question 4, here are the answers. So mark your work, celebrate your success. Well done. Really well done for working hard. If you got anyone wrong, don't worry about it. You just need to practice, practice, and practice, and then you get better. Let's do some new learning. So remember, in an earlier calculation, we were able to work out this value, okay? So if we're asked, work out the value of the expression when A 7.83, B is 16.67, and C is 21.54, and we need to work this expression, find the value. So we need to do A add B. So A is 7.83. When we add B, which is 16.67, we're going to have 24.5. And then when we do our subtraction using our column method, we know that we're going to have to use 0 as a placeholder there. Well, if you didn't know this, you need to know. Okay, so I'm sure you learned it in primary school, but you need to know. So because there's nothing there, and we've made sure that the place values are aligned properly. Also the decimal. This is just it's not placed correctly, but they should line up so it's in the correct place. So now you can do your calculation. You say, okay, I'm going to have to do an exchange from here. So that's 4, but that is now 1. That is now that exchange of 1 we made from here is equal to 10 hundredths. Now there was none here before, so 10 hundredths subtract 4, that should be 6. Now remember, that's now left with 4. It's not enough to take 5 away from it, so we do an exchange from there. That's now 14. 14 subtract 5 is 9. Remember, we did an exchange here, so that's left with 3. 3 subtract 1 is 2, and then 2 subtract 2 is 0. So our answer is 2.96. So we do not have to write the 0 because there is no value to it. All right, here is the last example. I want you to pause and see whether you'll be able to do this yourself. Okay, so the question says, use the price list to work out how much change will be given when paying for 2 soups with a £10 note. So the first thing we need to do is to find out what the value of 2 soups actually is. So we add them. So we can either say 3.29 plus 3.29, or we can work out 3.29 times 2 to know the value of 2 soups. Once we get that value, we can now subtract it from 10. Now, 10 is an integer, so to be able to make sure that the place values line up, we need to put a decimal point in front of the 10, and we need to use zeros as the placeholder. So this is the correct way of representing the solution. Now we can do our subtraction. So why do we have to start from there? Because there are nothing here for us to do our subtraction. So there's nothing here. There's nothing here to do an exchange. Nothing here. So we start from here. So this is the ones column and this is the tens column. So if we take 1 10 counter is equal to 10 ones. So that is now 10. But remember, we still need to keep going. So we take from there, that's now left with 9 ones. But now the one we took from here is equal to 10 tenths. All right, so that's 10 tenths. We still need to keep going because we need to solve this. We need to make sure this one has some value. That's now 9, and that's now 10. So 10 subtract 8 is 2, 9 subtract 5 is 4, 9 subtract 6 is 3. There is nothing there because we started to do our exchange from here. That is 0. So our answer is actually £3.42. Okay, pause the video and answer questions 5 and 6 in 4 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered the questions, here are the answers. So here you ask, Kim buys a magazine for £2.89. She pays with a £10 note. How much change should she receive? Okay. The way to do that is to do 10 subtract 2.89. So use your column method. Okay. Or formal method. Here you're giving values for these variables. So letters are called variables in maths. So you ask, work out values of the expressions. So again, for the first one, you're going to have to do 5.84, which is x, subtract or minus 3.4. Again, you can use your column method. Okay, practice, practice, practice. You get better by doing that. Pause the video and answer question 7 in 3 minutes. But before you do that, I want to give you clues. By now, you should be able to look at certain fractions and tell what they represent. So that is 0.3, that is 0.25, that is 1.5, that is 0.79, that is 0.75, that is 1.75. Okay, so I've given you hints. Now start to work. All right, so here are the answers, assuming you've paused through the video. You've paused it and worked through the solutions. Here are the answers. Celebrate your success. Pause the video and answer question 8 in 4 minutes. So I'm just going to do the first one. So remember, we did this when we worked with integers. So it's the same process. So if we look at your function machine, here you add in 1.7. So to get A, you have to do that. So we subtract. So we're going to do 54 minus 1.7. Here is going to be 7.6 minus 2.58. Here is going to be 5.9 plus 3.05. Here is going to be 5.4 plus 1.7. Here is going to be 5 minus 3.15. Here is going to be, first you add these, and then you subtract this from whatever you get from there. Okay? So when we think about it, our solution will be, so let's give you all the solution, the answers, so that you can mark your work. So the answers will be these. All right, last question. Pause the video and answer question 9 in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered question 9, here are the answers. So here you were asked, Mo is 1.5 meters tall. Wow, he's quite tall. Alex is 14 centimeters shorter than Mo. Tom is 14 centimeters taller than Mo. Oh, Tom is quite tall. Aisha is 27 centimeters shorter than Alex. Okay. Work out the lengths of the other students. Give your answers in meters. So let's start to look. I'll just discuss it. I'm not going to spend time working it out in detail. So here is about reasoning. Okay. So first we want to work out Alex's height. To work out Alex's height, we're told that Alex is 14 centimeters shorter than Mo. So we'll have to do, 14 centimeter is 0.14, right? So this is in meters. So it's either you make this in centimeter and then subtract this one from it, or you can make this in meters, which is 0.14, and subtract it from 1.5. So now to get this, you do 1.5 minus 0.14. Okay, remember how we do our exchange. So that will be 4. That will now be that. Okay, 10 minus 4 is 6. 4 minus 1 is 3, and 1.3. Yeah, 36. This one, we're told that Tom is 14 centimeters taller than Mo. So it's adding 14, all right, to 1.5. So 0.14 to 1.5. And then Aisha is shorter than Alex. So you have to take this Alex's value, and then you need to subtract 0.27 from it, yeah, to get Aisha's height. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm sure you did well on that. If not, you can learn from a mistake, and that's how you get better. That brings us to the end of our lesson. So what we've learned so far is that using your knowledge of place value, again, you can use the column or formal method to do decimal subtraction. One important thing you must note, make sure that the place values are aligned. Another way of thinking about it is making sure that the decimal points line up when you do your subtraction. Until next time, really well done for working hard, but look after yourself. Take care and bye-bye.